Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be interviewing a stand-up comedy legend from the Bay Area, where I'm from, and that is Carrie Snow. You may remember Carrie. She used to be on An Evening at the Improv, and I think a couple other showcases. I have to check with her about that, but I know she used to be on An Evening at the Improv back in the day. And we're going to talk about her career from, San Francisco all the way to LA, writing for Roseanne and all that stuff. And yeah, it should be a pretty good episode. She's a funny lady. And yeah, I'm going to be interviewing Carrie Snow in just a few moments. Happy birthday to my past guest, Tiffany Helm, from Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. I can't remember how young she is, but happy birthday nonetheless. She is a cool, awesome lady. So, yeah, this is going to be my interview with Carrie Snow. Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Are we on the air?
Yes, we are.
Oh, dear. All right. Well, I'll try to quit messing with plastic bags because I'm trying to eat up to the moment of my call.
Oh.
Well, here. And what was the intro like?
It was pretty solid, pretty ordinary. Same one I do every episode, pretty much.
Oh, okay. I thought it was about me, and I got all excited.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. I always mention the guest's name and, their credits and what have you, but it's pretty ordinary overall, though.
Yeah, all right. I understand. And what is the name of this podcast? Let's remind me.
Splat from the Past.
Splat from the Past. Wow.
No, Splat from the Past.
A splat from the past. Okay, that even is more apt. I appreciate that. Yeah, I understand. Does it blow your mind when you talk to the old comics?
Oh, it sure does. I mean, I talk to comics, actors, musicians, like so many different people.
That's so cool. All right. I love that. Now, are you in a dedicated studio space in your house?
I just in my bedroom, pretty much.
I see. That makes me even happier. Because you're keeping it real, baby.
Yeah.
Keeping it real. Now, I don't know about the look, and now I'm running water. About the time frame, but are you going to go to? Are you going to be at Missy's event tomorrow?
No, because I'm in Redding, California, not Los Angeles. I wish I was in Los Angeles, but...
Well, I will be your eyes and ears if you want me to tell you anything about it. I'm speaking in the original room.
Nice.
And I have made so many comics and friends laugh saying, I can't even get booked in the main room for a funeral at this point. So, but I'm happy just to be included. I really am. Because, it's one of the beginning jokes I'm doing is that I really never thought Missy was going to die because I know she didn't want us to all get together and have a party.
Yeah.
and so, I mean, the doors open at 6 and we're all getting there at 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can, it's going to be the best hang on the planet,
Yeah.
And because I was overweight and thoughtfully didn't sleep with all of the comics, I mean, a couple, but,
Yeah.
who else? Who else was there for you at night as a woman comic? Who else? Doormen? Bartenders?
Yep.
Yeah. So, every once in a while you had to dip your wick in the company ink, as it were. I don't even know how you would make that for a woman. I don't even know how you would customize that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm putting press and seal on my food so I can relax and actually talk to you.
Okay.
So, tell me, do you have like a wife and a family? You said you had a wife.
No, I don't have a wife.
You don't have a wife. Oh, that's why you're allowed to do the thing in your bedroom.
Yeah, and I don't have any kids.
Good answer. Good answer. I mean, I talk to friends who are doulas. You know what a doula is? It's like a pretty holistic birth coach. And she teaches prenatal yoga. She has 2 kids, from a previous marriage.
Yeah.
And I asked her, how the fuck are people still having sex and procreating? What was the shape of the world? I'm stuttering. It makes me so crazy. But, and it's not just stupid people that are having kids.
Mm-hmm.
People have some kind of crazy manifest destiny. And my Mitzi actually told the comedian in no uncertain terms that we really shouldn't have kids. And my joke about that is that, and she spawned Pauly Shore. Look, I can't even say my own joke. And she spawned Pauly Shore, so she knows what she's talking about. But she told the comedian, and I have a joke that Taylor Negron gave me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a long time ago. And the reason I know it was a long time ago, because I know I was in my late 20s and I was in love with some radio guy that had 2 kids with his first wife, had a vasectomy after, and then when he married somebody else, he had it reversed and had 2 more kids with the second wife. And I wanted him to reverse it again to have one of his children. My sister flew out from Dallas. She was so scared. And Taylor said, you can't have kids. You have white couches. And I've been using the joke ever since. So
nice.
I'm not. And then the male comics that had kids, it's like, okay, you're either on the road, but then there's like another generation of comics kids that are becoming comics, like Dana Carvey's kids.
Yep.
Blake Clark, a comic from the Comedy Store, Vietnam vet, brilliant guy.
Oh yes.
He's hilarious. I follow him on Twitter.
Yep.
And I took him to Disneyland when he was about 7 years old. My nephew was 6.
Nice.
My nephew, it's crazy. So, I love that it is genetic and not just the damage that we can do to each other. Yeah. One of my nephew's fondest memories is Bob Saget holding him by one ankle out of a balcony when he was 6 years old.
Oh my God, that's
just
funny.
For fun. Just for fun.
Yeah.
And he came to visit for Christmas. We got to go to, I would bring them to Disneyland. My niece and nephew. I could only do one at a time.
Yeah.
But that gave me enough of an experience of parenthood. I used to call them living birth control.
Yeah.
So use your nieces and nephews for what God intended them to be as a cautionary tale.
Yes.
I
agree. But it's such...
So ask me anything.
Yes. It's such an honor, Carrie, because I used to watch you on an evening at the Improv when I was a kid. And I'm from San Francisco. I've been doing comedy 12 years. And so this is pretty cool. Yeah. And,
because I was famous there for about 5 minutes in the late 80s, and I'm sorry if you missed it. It was a great time, and if you knew how spoiled we were, in the very beginning, I had a mailing list, and I would go leaflet at 18th and Castro for bar shows that I was doing, just gay bar shows and stuff. But then at the comedy clubs, people would come to see you. It was crazy. Bobby Slayton and I were the only comics that did 3 shows on a Saturday night.
Right.
And I would come to work, and people would be waiting in line. And it was, sometimes I would go out and talk to the people in line, which you're really not supposed to do, supposedly. I had a manager once who said that we were supposed to keep the illusion, that we were separate. But the first time a bus ever came and saw me at the Punchline in Walnut Creek, a bus full of old people, I got on the bus because I was so excited to see them. So maybe I wasn't as cool as I should have been, but, it was pretty great. And now it's such niche marketing to not only find your audience, but to get an audience, because my audience in the Bay Area has gotten a little bit older. Now, I still work at the Throckmorton and stuff on comedy night,
I love that place.
But, have you been to the Throckmorton?
I've been there to watch. I haven't been there to perform.
Well, consider it a life goal, because it was one for me. And to be able to perform on a stage that Charles Chaplin and, I'm trying to think of who else. There's been a bunch of people. When vaudeville, before the Bay Bridge, before the Golden Gate Bridge, they would take the ferry. Each little stop was a separate thing.
Yeah.
And so basically, I think comics are just vaudeville with better transportation.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And because you do have a responsibility to do your stand-up and to make people happy. I think that's a big deal. And you can't just go to San Francisco and New York and pretend like you're in show business. Even like I've heard Broadway actors back in the day would say, we have to take it to the people. So that's part of the work ethic. Even though I don't want to leave my house, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I went to Indio on Wednesday night, had a great time. The drive is what kills you.
Yeah.
But it's harder to get out of LA. We got back in, I think the show was over on Coordinate. We got back, and it took us 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours to get there. And we got back in 2.5. Nice. Boom. Take a shower, get in your own bed. You don't even know you were gone. So are you working a lot of, like one night? I mean, what's your plan?
I'd like to be a comedy club comic, but I don't have a shitload of followers on social media, as they say, and I just been pounding the pavement. I've been pursuing it seriously the last 3 years after I had a car accident and stuff. So I'm building it, because I just did as a hobby for years before that.
Well, that's what changed Gary Shandling's life many years ago when he had a car accident. And I think it makes you prioritize what's important to you. And do you know who Mike McDonald from Canada was?
Yeah, he passed away.
He was their George Carlin. He was prolific. He was profound. He was just a lovely man. Yep. And when people say, well, how did you know Mike? And I said, well, I met him at Just for Laughs in Montreal in 1985, I believe. And the next year, when I was visiting, I was at a bank in Montreal getting cash for him to buy pot for me, and the bank got robbed.
Oh, my God.
So that's how tangled up I am. And I remember him telling me how big my eyes were afterwards.
Yeah.
And because they didn't take my money. But, bank robbery. Didn't tell my parents for years, because I was sure they would never let me leave the house ever again, and I was an adult.
Yeah.
But at his memorial, Rich Scheidner talked about how Mike told him he was a lifer. And it's a huge compliment. And I would like to be called that at some point. I guess I am, because more than of the percentage of my life, I'm almost at 2/3 of my life as a comic.
Yeah.
And if you do it, whether you're famous or not, and if you feel like you have something to say, and see, that can also morph into something. You don't have to be a comic on stage. You can use it for sales. You can do, whatever it is. But there's something about it. If you're supposed to do it, you really can't stop. You just can't.
Oh yeah, I act. I write screenplays. I do all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish I had been more of a not polyamorous, what's the word? Polydidact, whatever it is, of just doing more stuff. Because I didn't even realize I was a writer until like the late 80s, and someone told me I was.
Yeah.
So I thought I was a cheesy showgirl. Yeah. I had no idea. She goes, well, do you write every day? And I go, yeah. Well, then you're a writer. Oh. And because I actually wrote an article once for my dad for Father's Day for the San Francisco Chronicle. And I don't know if I don't think I sent it to anybody in particular.
Oh.
I just thought I lived in a small town and I could send it to the editor. And I don't think I even ever heard back from them. And so I didn't write anything of, as far as articles or anything for years.
Right.
For years. Because we're very delicate. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what year did you start doing stand-up?
I started taking a class in the end of 1977.
Right.
That sounds even more horrible. Excuse me. But I had also started doing professional party guesting before that.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, and you're saying, Carrie, what is professional party guesting? Well, never before or since has it ever existed. This friend and I would go to parties and be rude to people and put food in our pockets. And just, it was hilarious. I'm going to cough now.
Yeah.
Because I took a vape hit thinking it wouldn't affect me. All righty then. And, well, I just got done with yoga and I got to go to a play later. And, why not? But remind me what I was telling you too.
You were a party guester.
Party guester.
Yeah.
So my friend would end up getting drunk and making out with the married host, which was not cool.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who adored me, and we're still friends, and he knew someone who was the editor of a Berkeley newspaper, and because I had graduated from Berkeley, he thought it'd be a great little story. He goes, well, what are you going to do with all this?
Yeah.
I'm telling him about going to houses and, putting Oreos in my pocket and asking a woman, wow, you're Marcia's sister. They told me to make sure and watch you eat. And just horrible things. But we were funny.
Yeah.
And so my friend ended up marrying a really boring tennis player and living a very banal existence.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm going to do stand-up. And I did. I started February 21st of 1978.
Mm-hmm. That's my mom's birthday, by the way.
It's my mom's birthday as well.
Nice.
And I started on her birthday by accident.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of bit me in the ass many years later when she was really old, and I had to go home for her birthday and take a picture to make sure the government knew we were taking care of her.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I told the guy that ran the club in Vegas, Carl, at the Improv in Vegas, that I started stand-up on my mom's birthday, and he said, and he goes, wow, I joined the Air Force on my dad's birthday. And I go, yeah, but you don't have to celebrate it every single year, do you? Joining the Air Force. And so, but this year I celebrated 40 years at the Throckmorton. And my husband was on the show, and Brian Copeland, and this comedian from Seattle named Bama Roger, who sang my favorite song that she wrote called Like Me, about auditioning. That's hilarious, about how needy we are. And it was a great show. It was great. And so you celebrate those milestones. Even if you took a break, you go, well, I took a break. And because the longest I ever went without doing some kind of performing, because even when I wrote for Roseanne, I was performing in the room because I was the joke pitcher for our joke room.
Right.
You'd have a room of people, and you'd have to come in, and everybody would vote on your jokes, and so they knew I was going to be able to deliver the goods, as it were. And so, but we were exhausted. After I'd had my gastric bypass, I kept getting cold, and the doctor said, well, would you like me to write you a note so you can go home a little early? And I said, yeah. I said, I should go home by 10. Mm-hmm. He goes, 10 a.m.? And I said, no, 10 p.m., because we would start at 10. And he was like, okay. And I still felt guilty that I wasn't staying the full 14, Mm-hmm. But I had to get well. So, yeah, can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Have you watched the Roseanne reboot yet?
Yeah, I've watched the first 2 episodes. I like certain parts about it. I don't like the Trump thing, but I like certain parts of it.
Well, I was sad for Laurie Metcalf, who is such a fine actress that they made her into a cartoon. I have a lot of conflicting feelings, because I always said, well, the worst thing that if they brought the show back was that I would get more residuals from my 1.5 script credits that I get,
Yeah.
And, but it's sort of turned into a political nightmare. And I know her ratings have halved now.
Yeah.
But she did have me fired and walked to my car with security, so I am a little bitter about that.
Oh, God.
And rightly so. But I wrote such a great joke about it after I'd gotten fired.
Mm-hmm.
Between that and my dad getting sick and 9/11 and all this stuff, I said I didn't know how depressed I was till I did laundry, and it was all pajamas.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's $1 million joke, damn it.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. We'll get to that in a bit, but I was curious, though. You were at the Holy City Zoo at that time?
Yes, that's the first place I did stand-up. I took classes from Frank Kidder, but the first class was done by Jose Simon because Frank was out of town wearing a green suit of some kind.
Right.
And so, it was just like a simple class to make you feel safe. And I remember there was a handout sheet, and they asked us which numbers are funnier, which words were funnier.
Uh-huh.
Not as a rule, but as guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But learning how to be yourself. And so I'm not, I know people that teach here. I've actually coached people, but it comes from inside of you,
mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of learning how to express your truth.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Like the sweet spot in a tennis racket. And the only thing that makes me really crazy, and I have to do my These Kids Today,
mm-hmm.
About comics, is it's like, because I was considered to be very dirty
mm-hmm.
in the 80s, and I had a lot of anger. I was working out, and also my mom swore.
Yeah.
And she was kind of crazy and all this, and so I had to be even crazier. And so it took me a while, and it was actually writing 100 jokes a day on Roseanne that probably really taught me that that it not only does, I love the word fuck, don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but it ruins your rhythm.
Yeah.
When you can't do it. And so that's the cautionary tale that I have. But also, I know that when I was given notes from 1987 from a television show called the CBS Morning Show that Bob Saget was hosting, and he got all the comics on, and we all got to go to New York and do stand-up on a morning talk, on a national radio show, or television show, and get sent to New York. And it was kind of like showbiz with kids,
Yeah.
And this woman was a network, producer, and she sent me a copy of the notes that they said that a lot of my jokes, they said, were utterly unacceptable, and they were just so incredibly benign. So I don't know what role, my size, my sex, it's one of the craziest things when I lost weight and did stand-up again was how the people were so nice to me
mm-hmm.
for no apparent reason. Just like even when I was going on stage, it was like, what are you smiling at? Because I had to push back against so much at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me, want to be bad.
Right.
Because if we were good, well, gosh, I would have married that farmer after I went to Fresno State and probably killed him in his sleep. Nonetheless, if I had been a good girl, well, I wouldn't have had this life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not all Ferris Bueller on you that, you have to say you don't give a shit. I remember when I was crying working for Roseanne Taylor, and he's going, be nice, it's your retirement. And of course he was right. And because it was supposed to be such a great thing, and it was just awful.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So what year did you move to L.A.?
I first came to L.A. I flew for a weekend In 78, after I'd done the comedy competition in San Francisco and had gotten 11th. I don't even know how many finalists they had. But I just missed getting to the semifinals. And I'd never worked 6 days in a row before. I took time off at my day job at Kaiser Oakland as a receptionist. Mm-hmm. And I went and I showcased for Bud and the Ice House first. I don't know if it was Bob or Jan who saw me. Yeah. But I got passed, everywhere. And then, and for Mitzi, because the Improv, there'd been a fire, or as I used to call it, a Jewish barbecue at the Improv. And so it was like the auditions were during the day out in the bar.
Yeah.
And Bud heckled me, but during my audition, because he thought he was funny. Yeah. No, that wasn't true. And then I went up, I think, again the next year. I don't know if I flew down again, but I drove down and spent 2 months in 1979 staying at a friend's house. And I said, what is this? Well, I took a leave of absence from my job and said, what's this all about? And it was kind of great to be able to sleep all day and watch some of the best comedy on the planet at night.
Right.
So that was in 79. And I started coming down more and more once I, knew the drive and did all that. Mm-hmm. And then in 1980, I emceed at a Mel Strip show in San Francisco for 9 months, a year. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
All I know is it's one of the only things my dad ever asked of me was not to date the strippers. Yeah. Mel Strip show. The fact that I weighed almost 300 pounds, notwithstanding, it was so sweet. And one time, and North Beach.
Yep.
The Kearney and Broadway.
Yep.
And Enrico's was the bar there. I don't know what it's still Enrico's, but I parked my car early because my dad was in town on business. Walked across the street. He picked me up in Enrico's, and then we had dinner. And I had to be at work at 7 o'clock. Nothing better than going to work at the Mel Strip show during the summer when it's light outside.
Right.
That makes you feel extra skeezy. So my dad is dropping me off at the strip show. He's circling the block, and he goes, "Now, which club is it, honey?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "The one that says Exotic Live Acts, Daddy." So he was proud. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we had a good time. I don't know if any of them are still alive. Let's be honest, of the strippers. But they used to put folded dollar bills on a waitress's tray to let me know they were there. They would have the waitress bring the dollar up to me to tip me. Yeah, like a mafia reminder. But and so then I think I moved to LA in 80, 81.
Yeah,
I don't remember. But by then people. And I think my first apartment was just a roommate with a comedian from Chicago, who I no longer speak to because she's kind of gotten crazy about Trump and Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But, so, that's how it began. And then you go on the road and you meet some people and it snowballs. Mm-hmm. It was just a long, slow, steady, I can look back at it and it was basically, just trauma with shows. And now having to bring it all back up, now that people want to talk about it, I say that it's nostalgia with a heaping side of PTSD.
Yeah.
Big old lump of it with gravy. But there's great stories and, and what happens as you get older is you can remember 40 years ago, but then yesterday is a little difficult unless you put it in your calendar and your phone.
That's true. I listen to the Comedy Store podcast, and so I know a lot of the legendary comics there that didn't make it and all the folklore and all that stuff. Who was there when you got there?
God. Well, the first two friends I made there were Steve Moore, the piano player, and Taylor Negron.
Yeah.
And they're both no longer with us. And my husband doesn't let me write this on Facebook anymore, but anybody really nice dies, I would go, and Andrew Dice Clay is still alive. Because there is no justice, is what I'm trying to tell you. And
Dice made me want to become a comedian when I was like really, really little. Him,
so sorry.
Him and Kinnison and Bobcat Goldthwait. Those were like my three heroes.
Well, if Sam had lived, and I kissed Sam, thank you very much, it's a chapter in my book.
Yeah.
No, it's not a whole chapter. I kissed him one particular summer, but it's the opening line of a story.
Yeah.
But if Kinnison had lived, Andrew would not have had the career that he did.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the Jim Belushi syndrome,
Yeah.
America's collective guilt complex.
Yeah.
Because the brilliance that was Kinnison was beyond. And obviously,
he was the best.
Bob is an artist that keeps working,
Yeah.
And that's when people want me to judge people, and I can judge Andrew because I know him. I know that he slept with, he was engaged to Missy's daughter, and he slept with Missy. I know too much.
Yeah.
I know too much. And so it's hard to separate the person. And my sister used to say that when I would tell her about a comic, I'd go, brilliant comic, reprehensible human being. And she said, you say that a lot. Well, but and people ask me all the time, like when women have gotten successful and, what I have to say about it. And don't I think they're mediocre? And I'm like, there's so many mediocre guys out there that I have to give a big thumbs up when somebody does well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to me to judge. It's their truth they're working on too.
Yeah.
I mean, it horrifies me sometimes when the girls just talk about their pussy.
Yeah.
Because now I look back at my material and, I was pretty clever. And now I can say anything I want to without using bad words or even words that will upset people. Bad is a bad word. But in other words, I can do it without saying anything inflammatory and still surprise and offend people, and they just don't know why. There's a show booker down here who's just horrifying. Mm-hmm. And she books all these country clubs, all this stuff. And she said once, she goes, and I had a really good set, and she goes, you're dirty underneath, aren't you? I had just done a clean PG set. About the worst thing I say is that I'm a nice girl. I was a virgin until I was 20, and again until I was 23.
That's a good one.
That's a joke that I used in 1987 that was deemed unacceptable for television. And do you understand what a clean, little, squeaky, perfect joke that is?
Yeah, not bad at all.
Yeah. And so it was a different time, and I'm lucky to still be able to be funny, but enough damage was done. And, people tell their stories on Facebook, and, we all talk, I talk about my mom and this and that. But to be able to overcome your circumstance, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about overcoming who you are.
Yeah.
That's what lets you be free. And, do you have, how old are you, sweetie?
I'm going to be 35 in a few weeks.
You're just a baby. So I know you have friends and family your age that are just rocking it and, buying houses and doing stuff like that. And you do, I say that as a woman comic especially, I took a vow of poverty and chastity.
Yeah.
But I used to have a joke where I said that I don't have real estate, but I have really nice sweaters. Because I didn't give a shit. And also, I kept thinking that I was going to lose a lot of weight and marry Prince Charming, and he was going to buy me a house. I married a wonderful man I'm the oldest living first-time bride. But you take care of yourself. And so the only thing I can tell you is to buy something now so you have something later on.
Right.
I don't care if it's in the woods. because it's going to have to be for a kid to afford it. But that's unless, because I thought I was an heiress, okay? Mm-hmm. But my mom lived about 12 years longer than my dad and kind of sucked it dry. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'll be here all week. And so, you got to take care of your business. I wish I had been better with that. Mm-hmm. But, the girl Prince Charming thing was a bit of a moot point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever get on The Tonight Show or Letterman?
No, I did not, because I was dirty in the 80s. Mm-hmm. At least I was deemed dirty. And Dave did not. If you notice, the only fat woman they ever had on was Roseanne, and she was already famous by then. So Dave was not a fan, even though he liked Meryl Marco when she was still chubby, which I always liked about him, but he was mean. And the guy from The Tonight Show didn't really like me. He liked Maureen Murphy, and they were having a relationship besides. Yeah. And I remember being in the Westwood Comedy Store kitchen when Polly was working the kitchen, and we were all sitting there watching Maureen do the same 4 or 5 minutes of jokes that were purchased, that were just like jokes, it was like a 50s comic.
Yeah.
And going, oh, I thought it was because you were supposed to be funny. Oh. And it just, I saw money fly out the window. And then, like, a while later, we both got hired to do some disco. And they loved me. These guys loved me. And then they said, well, we're going to have Maureen first because we loved her from The Tonight Show. Well, they kept putting her Tonight Shows on a loop out in the bar. And then when she went and did her show, which was just her reciting the exact same jokes from The Tonight Show, there was nearly a riot. And the club no longer had comedy. So I've seen money fly out. I just, they've actually got a little emoji for it on my iPhone of money flying away.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
And so other women were punished for other women. Mm-hmm. Maureen didn't parlay it into anything. And, people like Diane Nichols, who's one of the best writers in the world, should have been writing for Jay. Yeah. But Jay didn't have any girl writers. Yeah. And I can't tell you why. Alrighty. But, I'm really lucky that I've met some really, truly gifted humans, some truly damaged ones, some truly funny ones. I don't think, and it's not a cliche that the comics get to laugh together like nobody's business. Mm-hmm. That shared history that we have, Yeah. And so, I'm excited about being able to see everybody and trying to rest up.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty big. I wanted to ask, though, in the early 90s, you were in that HBO movie Running Mates.
Oh, my God.
With Diane Keaton and Ed Harris and Michael Lindsay Hogg directed.
You're the only living human who's ever referenced that.
Really?
I get a check from HBO, usually in election years, for about $1. And I was not an actress. I was not in my body. I can tell you exactly where my life was at the time. I was gaining weight back from Optifast and 2 plastic surgeries. Mm-hmm. And being tortured all the time, and they wanted to do I just wasn't ready to sit. I was still too frenetic,
Yeah.
It took me about 20 years of yoga to be able to sit in one place. But I still know Ed Begley Jr. and Ed Harris.
Yeah.
I had to tell him to quit eye fucking with me. He was so sweet. I think I embarrassed him. I was a bit of but he has those blue eyes that look right into your eyes and right down to your panty line, is what those eyes do. Mm-hmm. And Miss Keaton was nice, too. I helped Ed Begley Jr. write his set for hosting Evening at the Improv.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he actually did stand up for a little bit back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
He was a comedy team with Michael Richards.
Can you imagine?
I can, because they did a movie together in the 80s.
I don't think I ever saw that.
Yeah, it was called Transylvania 65000. It's got all these big name actors in it.
Wasn't Demi Moore in it too?
No, Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, John Biner, Joe Bologna. A great cast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. So you've really used your time wisely. My husband knows shit about stuff, and it's just what we do. We collect information. And there was a young comic once who was like, he came off stage and he was mad because the audience at the Throckmorton skews a little older, and they didn't know who Kesha was.
Yeah, Kesha.
And this is even before her lawsuit, I think. And I said, oh, Kesha, the singer with the, dollar sign for the S in her name. Because it's your responsibility to stay current with stuff. But it's also, now, do you know what a Rolodex is?
Yep, a Rolodex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because all you ever want is to fill your Rolodex cards and hope the right card, when you spin it, comes up when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, don't they have virtual Rolodexes now on, I think it's a computer program you can get.
Maybe. I haven't seen them.
But you've never lived till you've had to go through a Rolodex. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I try to explain to young girls, we had phones that were stuck to the wall. And I said, and you had to wait for a phone call. And they're like, no! Yes. I didn't even start in with the whole party line extension. Well, I'm too young for party lines, but, like my sister picking up the extension on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much better now.
What's your favorite joke of all time?
Oh, God. It's just the last one that made me wet my pants, and it was probably, it's one of those you had to be there things. Now, do you know Patty Ross from Boston?
That name sounds familiar.
Well, she was in the last scenes of Spotlight at the Boston Globe, and she's really great. She's got a voice like this. And she and Steve Warnick, it wasn't even a joke. It was laughing with friends. But I'm trying to think of the joke. My husband told a great show business joke last night that I don't think I ever heard. Mm-hmm. About the two circus elephants, the young one and the old one. And they used to give them enemas before shows so that they wouldn't shit during the circus.
Yeah.
And they said, and so the young elephant just, they're fighting him, and it's just, and finally, they clean him up, they hose him down. Then the young elephant sees the old elephant getting his enema. Mm-hmm. Tube slides right in, doesn't say a word, and he turns to the guy and says, so, how's the crowd tonight?
That's a good one.
And I don't even know if I'm telling it right, but that's, yeah. I'm at how's the crowd tonight? All right, so yeah. But my husband was a comic before he became a writer producer, and now I've made him do stand up again, so we could go on the road together. We have a really funny picture of me with a backup camera of me backing into him, Terry and Carrie on the road, and when we first met, the first night we met. Only a comic would know something this minute. And I wrote about it in an article in the LA Times. And he said, we kissed for the first time, and then a light popped on, and I freaked out. And, it was one of those motion lights in his backyard.
Yeah.
And it popped on, and I jumped, and he pulled back and said, I'm sorry, your time is up. No, only a comic understands that. And so that's how he got me. He made me laugh, and that's how he got me. That bastard. And that's, because think about it. Women say that a man that makes them laugh is the sexiest thing ever.
Right. How
hard it is for a female comic to find a guy that makes them laugh. Oh, I tried to go out with civilians. I went on a date with an attorney who told me he'd Googled me that day before we were set up by friends. And it's like, I had no chance at all to be a nice person.
Right.
because he was going to see something of me on YouTube, and I didn't get to go sit at his desk and watch him be boring. He was a nice guy, though.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for him. I actually went on a second date with him because I was going to try. And I bought a shirt that I ended up wearing the first time I met Terry. Oh, my goodness. So I'm going to take a little disco nap. Mm-hmm. Now I think we call them nano naps. That sounds kind of groovier. Happy 35th birthday. You're hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
35. I was on a diet when I was 35, but I was, semi in show business.
I was on a diet when I was 23.
When you started?
Yeah, within the first week. And writing jokes became like my replacement for food, and it worked. I lost 130 pounds that whole year.
Look at you.
Yeah, and then my weight's been up and down since then. I'm on a diet currently, but yeah, at that time,
I haven't smoked a joint in my car in over 10 years because now that it's legal, my husband said, we're adults. We don't need to. And so, of course, I would smoke pot at the school across the street from the yoga studio where I parked my car. Yeah. So it's all different now. I left a party in high school because they were smoking there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
I mean, that was back in the day. So it's a privilege. So, and I'm pretty happy about it. Yeah, I celebrate 420. Are you a smoker?
Social, yes, but not like, it's not something I do every day.
Well, it keeps me from hurting myself and others. That and yoga, just kind of, but not ever before shows.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of keep, just like yoga as well, it kind of messes with my chi, and I don't want to go upside down. I have. And I've also done stand-up by accident. It's not that much fun.
Yeah, we had this club in the Bay Area. You probably know it, Rooster T. Feathers.
Uh-huh.
And they give you a free drink before you go on when you do new talent night. And for a long time before my accident, when I was able to drink, I would have a beer before I went on stage, and I would just completely destroy the place.
Well, it's whatever works for you. But what happens if you don't have a beer? What happens if, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's everybody's personal taste. I do not slut shame anybody.
Yeah, I mean, this was like when I was younger, when I could actually drink. Now I go on and I don't have anything except for maybe a little bit of caffeine from Coca-Cola I drink or something, but that's about it.
Yeah. But it's such an individual thing. I remember trying it once. Doing like stream of consciousness and just being high and letting it go. And I did it for a TV show, and my agent knew, and then they had a camera problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had a camera problem, and I had to kind of just riff. Oh yeah, it's crazy. And and once I did it by accident, and a guy who's a big talent manager now was a doorman at the Comedy Store.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very funny, and I was high enough because I'd been at an event, had an outfit on, went with my publicist. Yes, I had a publicist. And I called them at the Improv and said, any fallout? And they said, nope, everybody's here, come on down, no problem. And I get there, and like 4 people canceled. And my eyes are like going after like headlights in a bad accident. And I go on stage, and I had a little camera case purse, cross body thing. And so I didn't even notice I wore my purse. And I would ask people if they had condoms with them, because it was when you really needed to have them.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, well, you've got your purse. And I looked in my purse, and I not only had 2 I used to say I have 3 because I'm an optimist. And
Yeah.
and somebody said, well, what's in your purse? And I went in my purse, and I had 2 condoms and a Tux, one of those wipes to clean up with later.
Yeah.
And it was the dirtiest thing I'd ever said, and that's all Dave Rath ever remembers about me.
Oh my God.
What can I say? You live and you learn. All right, be good to yourself. I'll talk to you later.
Carrie, thank you so much.
Come to Comedy Day? Do you ever come to Comedy Day? Just quit punishing yourself about diet, please. It's so exhausting.
I went to Comedy Day 2 years ago. My friend Paul Brumbaugh does it over there. He's like one of the chairmen of the boards or something, and he gave me a backstage pass and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we plan on it every year. We already have our Airbnb reservations. It's our friend's Airbnb. We got the family rate, but still. And, Comedy Day. I'm very lucky to go there. That's why I'm afraid to stop ever, because I'm afraid they won't let me do it again.
Yeah.
And so I figure if I just sneak in every year, they'll let me. All right. We've been on the phone 52 minutes. I can't stop. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye, Carrie.
Thank you. All right. Let me know when you're doing it. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Well, there you have it. Carrie Snow. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Carrie. That was a very fun interview. If you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks.